All right. Libs of TikTok. Well, drums of the serpent. I'm so glad you asked. So when I first kind of went into this, saw like Libs of TikTok and stuff, I was like, okay. It's like it really is just a conservative version of like insert group here posting their L's, right? And it's like, okay, so this is what they think are L's. And I would watch a few, and they would seem pretty fucking harmless. It'd be like okay, not harmless, like clearly they're chuds, right? But it was like, okay, conservatives don't like shit that like gay people. All right, I mean, we knew that, right? We knew that. But this shit started blowing up. So check this out. This is Mallory McMurrow. Senator Lana Theis accuses her of being a pedophile.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect to wake up yesterday to the news that the senator from the 22nd District had overnight accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself. So I sat on it for a while wondering why me. And then I realized, because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme. Because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. So then what? Then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white. Well, here's a little bit of background about who I really am. Growing up, my family was very active in our church. I sang in the choir. My mom taught CCD. One day, our priest called a meeting with my mom and told her that she was not living up to the church's expectations and that she was disappointing. My mom asked why. Among other reasons, she was told it was because she was divorced and because the priest didn't see her at Mass every Sunday. So where was my mom on Sundays? She was at the soup kitchen with me. My mom taught me at a very young age that Christianity and faith was about being part of a community, about recognizing our privilege and blessings and doing what we can to be of service to others, especially people who are marginalized, targeted, and who had less. Often unfairly. I learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people. I also stand on the shoulders of people like Father Ted Hesburgh, the longtime president of the University of Notre Dame, who was active in the civil rights movement, who recognized his power and privilege as a white man, a faith leader, and the head of an influential and well-respected institution, and who saw black people in this country being targeted and discriminated against and beaten, and reached out to lock arms with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was alive, when it was unpopular and risky, and marching alongside them to say, "We've got you," to offer protection and service and allyship to try to right the wrongs and fix injustice in the world. So who am I? I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. Each and every single one of us decides what happens next and how we respond to history and the world around us. We are not responsible for the past. We also cannot change the past. We can't pretend that it didn't happen or deny people their very right to exist. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom. I want my daughter to know that she is loved, supported, and seen for whoever she becomes. I want her to be curious, empathetic, and kind. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment, or that healthcare costs are too high, or that teachers are leaving the profession. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. We cannot let hateful people tell you otherwise, to scapegoat and deflect from the fact that they are not doing anything to fix the real issues that impact people's lives. And I know that hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen. So I want to be very clear right now. Call me whatever you want. I hope you brought in a few dollars. I hope it made you sleep good last night. I know who I am. I know what faith and service means and what it calls for in this moment. We will not let hate win.
That's good. Now, the Libs of TikTok, this is where it starts becoming less of like, the new hype or the new thing to hate, right? It's not really a big deal. This new thing that we have going on about grooming and like conservatives doing what they do and then taking like a term, like a real term, and then changing it to like fit for them, right? And it's very, very purposeful, because what it does is it'll kind of take the thorn out of the real meaning of the word. I think a good example of it is the word triggered, right? So the word triggered is a very real medical term within mental health community, right? You have PTSD, you go through a certain level of trauma, and there are certain triggers for you that will cause, some sort of response, whether it's an anxiety attack or whatever. They've done that now with grooming. Like what is grooming, right? Like grooming is a thing that happens. I look up grooming and it tells me all the dog places to. All right. Manipulative behaviors that the abuser uses to gain access to a potential victim, coerce them to agree to the abuse, and reduce the risk of being caught. The method used by offenders that involves building trust with the child and the adults around the child in an effort to gain access to and time alone with them. Like, we all know that the term grooming abso-fucking-lutely has to do with gaining access to children in order to sexually abuse them. I don't know. Kind of like when 35-year-old Midwestern Christian dudes meet their 15, 16-year-old future wife and then marry them, 3 years later when they're of age. But the first time you met them was when they were 15. Kind of like that. Or maybe like you're a senator who has an intern, or knows somebody underage and takes them on a vacation across state lines and does stuff with them. Like there's an aspect in which you can it is absolutely in the realm of abuse and predatory behavior, so that you can enter into a sexual relationship with the person who is not old enough to consent. The conservatives will go grooming. Okay. I think, so we look at these definitions, right? And we're like, okay, gain access and trust, okay. The way that they talk to kids about the legitimacy of the LGBT community, grooming. Because we talked about this before, right? Where we talked about like how conservatives cannot wrap their head. Also the Catholic Church. Yeah, absolutely. Enzo, the new softball question for conservatives: what do you think about trans people? And the correct answer is anything that mentions the word woke or CRT. Yeah, exactly. They just take these terms, they change the definition, right? But the fact of the matter is that they have to do some like mental gymnastics to then talk about people within the LGBT community, plus, right? If they exist and they let any children know of their existence, you're now grooming. Like the very specific part about entering into an abusive relationship with them and then not being caught for it, right? Which we're talking about, like whether it's statutory rape or pedophilia or whatever, is irrelevant to them because they have to look at it that way. And I'm gonna get into something that for some might be a little uncomfortable, but I'm gonna say it anyway, here in a little bit. So serfs, right? Because we're not gonna reinvent the wheel here. Lance over at the serfs put together a really good thread that we're gonna do a little bit of rating. The account would frequently take videos of teachers either discussing it, and we'll go through a couple of their videos too. I kind of want to like check them out because most of what I have seen before was some milquetoast stuff, like nothing too what. The account would frequently take videos of teachers either discussing how they're trans or gay, or explaining why they're scared of anti-LGBTQ plus laws or how it affects their class environment. Then Libs of TikTok would state that they're pedophiles or grooming children, right? We're just gonna make up words now. We're gonna make up definitions for existing words. So they would call for them to be fired, which supposedly is the thing that that is the line. When you start fucking with people's money, when you take your ideology and you're trying to ruin lives and how people feed their families, that was supposed to be like the line you don't cross, and that's why the left was so bad. They also spread a false conspiracy theory about litter boxes for students who identify as cats being placed in Michigan schools and then implicated a specific district. They would just make up shit. So none of it was ever had to be vetted, right? And that's why you have Fox News, complete fucking joke of a fucking news agency, right? I think somebody said something not verified. Somebody else can verify it, but I think their tax category is entertainment, right? They don't even consider themselves journalism, but they come off as one. So if they just put the paint on there enough, then they're good. Numerous teachers have reported on the severe harassment they've received. The Libs of TikTok founder has boasted that several teachers have been fired as a result of being featured on the account. Tyler Wren, former English teacher in Oklahoma. God, dude, some fucking states are such fucking just. God, dude, like being in the South, being in the Bible Belt is bad enough, but then there's like some extra, right? Like Oklahoma, there's some fucking, it's like extra evil. Tyler Wren, a former English teacher in Oklahoma, posted a video telling LGBTQ kids shunned by their parents that Wren was proud of them and loved them. It was featured on Libs of TikTok last week. Since being featured on the page, Wren has been barraged with harassment and death threats. Superintendent in Eau Claire area school, where's this? Idaho? Wisconsin. Why are you grooming kids? And here we go. The president of the Eau Claire School District Board of Education speaks out after receiving a death threat Monday. Tim Norden got the email from an anonymous sender. It was targeted him and his family. I'm going to kill you and shoot up your next school board meeting for promoting the horrific, radical transgender agenda. It's now time to declare war on you pedos. I'm going to kill you and your entire family. Party of values. In response to the death threat, Mike Johnson released a statement Wednesday. The safety and security of our students, families, staff, and community members is of the utmost importance. We take all threats to our school community seriously and have safety protocols in place. We have occupancy limits in our boardroom. Because of the specific threats directed to Dr. Norden and his family on Monday, March 21st, which also referenced that evening's board meeting, the Eau Claire area school district worked with the Eau Claire Police Department to have 3 police officers present during the day. I guess hate the sin, not the sinner doesn't work for them anymore. Got to go back to pedophilia accusations. Yeah. Libs of TikTok communicates openly with Ron DeSantis. Press Secretary Christina Pushaw. They've collaborated on directly targeting LGBTQ plus teachers and publicly identifying them. These stories are all then amplified by Joe Rogan, Glenn Greenwald, and Tucker Carlson, who helped the account reach millions of new people, again spreading false claims and conspiracy theories. Joe Rogan, the largest podcast, and Tucker Carlson, the largest conservative pundit on network TV, amplified Libs of TikTok. The Washington Post article does not publish the founder of Libs of TikTok's personal address, family address, or phone number. One of the other things going around is that they doxed her and all that, and it's like, nope, just found out your name. That's what journalists do. Fox had to call them Southern Entertainment to avoid lawsuits. Yep. Well, it's nice to see that maladjusted individuals have yet another place to gather on social media. Yep. Tucker Carlson, the largest ball tender. So meet the woman behind Libs of TikTok secretly fueling the right's outrage. So this is actually a pretty important article, actually. Again, there's like this. I've brought up this kind of stuff to people like, have you heard about this? Like, some people are just programmed to hear certain words and then it just kind of turns off. Like TikTok. You hear TikTok, who cares? Little kids dancing, singing. Okay, some racist is talking about people on TikTok, who cares, right? It's huge. It's huge. And those screenshots from Lance, from the surfs, it's causing it's somebody's gonna die. Somebody's absolutely going to die because of people like him. On March 8th, a Twitter account called Libs of TikTok posted a video of a woman teaching sex education to children in Kentucky, calling the woman in the video a predator. The next evening, the same clip was featured on Laura Ingram's Fox News program, prompting the host to ask, when did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals? Libs of TikTok reposts a steady stream of TikTok videos and social media posts, primarily from LGBTQ people, often including incendiary framing designed to generate outrage. The anonymous account's impact is deep and far-reaching. Its content is amplified by high-profile media figures, politicians, and right-wing influencers. Its tweets reach millions, and influence spreading far beyond its more than 648,000 Twitter followers. I want to see something real quick. Look at that. Since the writing of this article, they're about to hit 1 million. They're at 897 now. Jesus, yeah, over 200 grand since this article was written. When was this? Yesterday. 200,000 in a day. Libs of TikTok has become an agenda setter in right-wing online discourse, and the content it services shows a direct correlation with the recent push in legislation and rhetoric directly targeting the LGBTQ community. Libs of TikTok is basically acting as a wire service for the broader right-wing media ecosystem, said Ari Drennan, LGBTQ program director for Media Matters. Yeah, no such thing as bad press for them. Yeah, 100%. The account has been promoted by podcast Joe Rogan, and it's been featured in the New York Post, the Federalist, the Post Millennial, and a slew of other right-wing news sites. Meghan McCain has retweeted it. The the online influencer Glenn Greenwald has amplified it to his 1.8 million Twitter followers while calling himself the account's godfather. Last Thursday, the woman behind the account appeared anonymously on Tucker Carlson's show to complain about being temporarily suspended, which is like a one-day suspension, for violating Twitter's community guidelines. Fox News often creates news packages around the content that Libs of TikTok has surfaced. So yeah, they find out who it's from. Chaya Rychik is her name. Had been working as a real estate salesperson in Brooklyn when in early November 2020, she recruited the account that would eventually become Libs of TikTok. It was first Shia69830552. She minimized COVID, cast out on the election results, and promoted a dubious story about a child sex trafficking ring. She's Q. She is part of QAnon. On November 23rd, 2020, Rychik changed handles, this time going by Shia Ray and identifying herself publicly as a real estate investor in Brooklyn. She began doubling down on election fraud conspiracies using QAnon-related language. Early that December, she joked about launching a clothing line titled "Voter Fraud is Real." In January 2021, Rychik started talking about traveling to DC to support Trump on January 6th on the Stop the Steal rally. At the Stop the Steal rally, when violence broke out at the Capitol that day, she tweeted a play-by-play account claiming to be on the ground. They were rubber bullets from law enforcement. One hit right next to me, she said. She posted videos from the crowd and spoke of tear gas being deployed nearby. After saying she left the riot, she used Twitter to downplay the event, claiming that it was peaceful compared to a BLM protest, which would then go on to be a very popular talking point, right? So it's, I don't know which one's the dog, which one's the tail, but there's definitely a correlation there. Later that month, Rychik cycled through 2 more Twitter names, this time focusing on state politicians. First under the handle Chaya Rychik and the display name Chaya Rychik. And then under the new handle, Cuomo Must Go. Calling for him to resign, she promoted the efforts to recall Governor Gavin Newsom, which failed. She also began posting about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, calling him actually brilliant. So she goes through different various TikTok accounts. Just 4 months after getting started, Libs of TikTok got its big break. Joe Rogan started promoting the account to the millions of listeners of his hit podcast. Now, one of the things that is talked about often, and it's still to this day, go on a stream that is, defending debate bros or whatever, and one of the things that people talk about is platforming. I think often the left, the online left, does a much less, like, I'm not equivocating, but does something similar with regard to taking words and then making them fit their narrative so they can like kind of drive home some sort of point they're trying to make. And platforming is one of those words that the online left uses to kind of shut down any sort of conversation with anybody that they feel shouldn't be on anybody's whatever. I think it's important to consider power dynamics when it comes to platforming. I know Xander Hall, for example, got a lot of shit with Lauren Southern, but I even though I agree he did a shit job, and he has said as much himself. What did he do for her? Did he like, wow, nobody knew who she was before then? Like this is fucking platforming. Just 4 months after getting started, Libs of TikTok got its big break. Joe Rogan started promoting the account to the millions of listeners of his hit podcast. That is platforming. That is blowing somebody up with your extremely giant, like nobody, very few people, probably all the biggest fucking homophobes and QAnoners probably knew about her, and that was it. But then Fox News starts talking about her and all that shit. And that is platforming. Libs of TikTok gaining more prominence to the end of last year. Her anti-trans tweets went especially viral. She called on her followers to contact schools that were allowing boys in girls' bathrooms and pushing the false conspiracy theory that schools were installing litter boxes for kids who identified as cats. She also purported that adults who teach children about LGBTQ plus identities are abusive, that being gender nonconforming or an ally to the LGBTQ plus community is a mental illness, and referred to schools as government-run indoctrination camps. Libs of TikTok is shaping our entire political conversation about the rights of LGBTQ people to participate in society. tell that to the Democratic legislators. By March, Libs of TikTok was directly impacting legislation. DeSantis' press secretary, Christina Pushaw, credited the account with opening her eyes and informing her views on the state's restrictive legislation that bans discussion or sexuality or gender identity in kindergarten through third grade, referred to critics as the Don't Say Gay bill. You know what really fucking sucks about this? What really fucking sucks is that how many, like this is reaching moderates. Like this is reaching these the middle of the road people. Like they don't believe you support police. That's not, if they already think that the Dems are anti-police, giving them more money is not going to do anything. They'll figure out a way to ignore that. But you take like a centrist, like you take like somebody who hasn't decided to educate themselves in what, you know, with gender identity and what the difference is between gender and sex, and understanding what the modern science says about it. And you have somebody out there saying, hey, like trans, like you think it's appropriate to talk to kindergartners about how some women have penises and some men have vaginas, and you think that's appropriate? You don't think that's something for parents? And they twist it in a way that sells it as, don't you think that sexuality and who you're fucking and what your genitals look like, do you think that's appropriate for kindergartners? But it's not fucking happening. It's literally not happening. These are the same people who think it's cute when their 5-year-old has a little girlfriend in preschool. They think it's cute when a baby with a penis and a baby with a vagina, like, oh, look, they already have a crush on each other. Hee 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 hee. That's cute. Like, it's funny because they're jokes about girlfriend and boyfriend and how they're going to get married in the future, and how, like, if a 7-year-old says they're going to marry their crush in school, by the way, crushes definitely happen in elementary school, that if they're going to marry each other, like, oh, that's going to be my husband. Hee 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 hee. Like, those are sexualized jokes. But a teacher who says, hey, it's okay to, you know, some people like, some women love men, and some men love women, and some men love men. Boom. Now you're sexualizing it. The fact of the matter is they just fucking hate gay people. And they hate trans people. And there's really no other way to say anything else about it besides it's just pure hate. It doesn't have to make sense to them. They need to hate them. And that's the end of that. By March, Libs of TikTok was directly impacted legislation. Yeah. As the account has grown in prominence, Radchick has taken steps to obscure her identity. Though she has done numerous high-profile media appearances, she's appeared anonymously. However, when registering the domain libsoftiktok.us last October, she used her full name and cell phone number linked to her real estate salesperson account contact information. So now, basically, if I really want to chase that down, and then I can go do my own homework. But it's still public information. That's the part right there, real quick, with regard to like doxing. So the fact of the matter is, these people are giant pieces of shit. And then here we go. This is the kind of shit. We should amplify and bring LGBT CRT voices to the front. Okay, we can do that. Oh my god, not like that. Doxing of Libs of TikTok. No, this is literally you. Like, this is literally Libs of TikTok. Spends their entire thread doxing people and getting them fired and saying where they work, and then shits on. I don't get it. I don't understand. Taylor Renz, who had billions of Bezos dollars behind her and coordinated with the leftist media to dox a private citizen, is the real victim here. The left is upset. I called the woman teaching sex education to the children a predator. Obviously, no context was provided. It's merely, it's referring to this video of a woman who wants to teach toddlers to masturbate.
That's how we should, like get down with yourself, explore your own body. Masturbation is really healthy, and I recommend it to people of all ages. All ages. As soon as my nephews could talk, they were doing that. That's what they were doing. Kids touch themselves. Kids start to ask questions, and we teach them the language for their bodies, right? That's your nose, touch your nose, show Aunt T, you can touch your nose. But my sister's not saying that when they're tugging at their penis, right? But it feels good, right? We have to learn ways to talk to young people about this so that they know how to explore their body consensually so that it's not in public, right? We don't want people exploring their bodies in public. That's not consensual. But exploring your body at any age, grandmas, grandpas, all of us need to be exploring our body. That's how we should, like.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, if I'm being dead honest, I feel a little uncomfortable at first. Like I was like, oh, what? But then the longer she talks, you got to put it into perspective, right? Like there's gonna be different context that you would tell each person. But no, this is absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's like this is my body and this is what happens, right? Don't touch that. Don't put that in your mouth because it's poisonous, or don't put, you're gonna get sick, or and then they'll teach shit about, don't put your fingers in your mouth because you're gonna get a sore throat. We learn about the world around us, and then there's this spot, right over your genitals that is like not allowed to talk about that, because like there's only one way you can talk about it, and that's like in the way that like some hardcore porn shit. Like, do they think that? Like, do you think they do? I mean, this is what they're presenting, but does the context like then? Let me tell you, 4-year-old, how you shove it up, butt. Here's how you have anal sex, and this is why it's important to, blah blah blah, and it's like, no. It's actually fucking weird to pretend like that area doesn't even fucking exist. You know what I mean? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like the whole thing behind where there was a lady teaching that you should ask consent, like in bathing and stuff like that. You should ask consent before touching them down there. And then it was like even as changing a diaper, can I change your diaper? This is that. Now, on its face, that sounds weird, right? On its face, it's kind of like you're gonna ask permission to change your toddler's diaper. I'm like, listen, yes. Does that mean they stay in their shit diaper, before until they say yes? No. But what it does is it gets them in the habit of like understanding what consent means. What's interesting is that when you talk to a lot of sexual assault victims, especially the younger they are, they don't even fucking know like fully how to communicate that something wrong is happening when they're getting abused, because nobody in their fucking family is allowed to talk about it or feels comfortable, because they're so fucking repressed that we gotta use nicknames and shit. You know what I mean? And so the idea, I don't know why I'm going off. So yeah, this is why that Kentucky woman is. This segment's about why that Kentucky woman is right actually. But the fact of the matter is that you can sit there and have different frameworks for different ages, and exactly like how she said, that's where it really started to make sense. If you don't teach children about their bodies and consent, they won't know it's wrong for other kids. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if I said all that, what have been said before or after that, then great minds. But that's exactly correct. That is exactly correct. I wanted to say something with regard to what is the problem here. And I'm telling you. I know that there are progressive Christians out there. I get it, right? So this is not a statement of like, this is not a broad essentialist statement about Christianity. But here's the problem with these kind of people. The idea of needing to hate, right? Like, why do you hate something? People don't just fucking hate randomly. Like, or maybe they do. I don't fucking know. But it's not like somebody just says, like, ooh, I'm gonna think about how common homosexuality was in ancient times. When we understand like what and acceptance of fluidity in gender, right? When we talk about two spirit people, or we talk about ancient Greek societies and this stuff, like where did this objection for like where homosexuality and all stuff, where did it come from? It came from freaking the Abrahamic religions. You know what I mean? And I understand that Judaism far and away is definitely more progressive than the other two as a whole. Not that aren't types of Judaism that are also that way, but it seems like the predominantly practiced of Judaism is definitely way more progressive than the other two. But these people, this is why they need to believe this stuff. You've tied it to your salvation, right? They believe there is like an eternal damnation to it, right? This is why people, without getting to, so flat earthers have to be flat earthers. The only way they're going to stop being flat earthers is by another Christian that they respect, right? They allow them to be explained on why this is a misinterpretation of the Bible that they believe in. The reason it has to be that way is because they will take the flat earthers take the some of the literal verbiage of the Bible and go, see, the Bible says this. If you, and what their pastors and what their like community, right, their little bubble, no pun intended, is telling them is if you don't agree with this, you are now lost. You've lost your salvation because you don't have the faith that Jesus Christ said is required. So, oh fuck, yeah. So then when you present them, this is what the problem is. This is where the fucking problem lies right here. You present them with the science. You sit there and you demonstrate math. You demonstrate, how you measure shadows across the distance. You show how tall objects disappear over the horizon because it lowers because you're going across. You show them all of that. And if you even get close up here, if you even get close, oh, I'm going to hell. Oh, no. I do believe in God. I believe in God. I believe in God. I believe. Like my faith. I have to believe. You believe without knowing. That's faith. And you cannot go outside of that. That's why on my journey, on my very, very much too long journey towards understanding that I'm an atheist, I lived in this like, okay, the Bible's bullshit, but God is real. Jesus is real. For an odd amount of time, for an oddly long amount of time, excuse me, after accepting that I felt the Bible was bullshit. And so people are like, why did you, like, you had already decided the Bible was BS? And I was like, yeah. But you held on and you thought Jesus was real? I was like, yep. I said, why? Because like that was my last little string to cut. Like it was my like, okay, because in my mind, like, okay, so Christ said, all who believe in me are saved. All right. If I reject the Bible, but accept him as my Lord and Savior, I'll still go to heaven. And when I get there, I can be told I'm an idiot or where I got right or wrong or whatever, right? I would always bring up the two, the thief who was crucified with Jesus, who believed. Like, and I always used to say, I'm like, well, that guy didn't know all the truths. That guy didn't know the Bible. That guy didn't know shit to be able to accept or not accept it. You know what I mean? So, and he went to heaven just by believing. So, okay, belief, got it. But I'm gonna read. And it's like stupid. It was stupid. It was it was just this weird internal thing about I don't want to go to hell, right? It's indoctrinated. If you've never been a Christian, if you've never been a theist of any type, you just cannot understand the levels of indoctrination that starts at infancy, right? But yeah, this whole drive to like paint homosexuals as groomers and child abusers and all that kind of stuff, it is 100% driven by religion.